This week, the South Carolina State Legislature cleared the way for the Bible to be taught as an elective in public high schools. While proponents of the measure believe that the Old and New Testaments should be viewed as being amongst the great books of literature, others like Representative Joe Neal disagree and believe it is unfair not to include non-Christian texts. Said Neal, quote, "If this is an amendment to get around the Constitution and insert a faith above another faith, that's a mistake. But with all due respect to Representative Neal, one faith has already been placed above all others in our public schools for a very long time." In 2003, historian and educator Diane Ravitch's book, The Language Police, How Pressure Groups Help Restrict What Students Learn, documented this bias. Quoting one textbook publisher who contended that everything written before 1970 was either gender-biased or racially biased, Ravitch wrote that in today's textbooks, quote, "It is appropriate to show women as strong and brave and men as weepy and emotional. African Americans could not be portrayed as maids. Caucasians should not be portrayed as business people. Men should not be portrayed as breadwinners. Women should not be portrayed as wives or mothers." In 2003, Fox News also reported that in many school textbooks, quote, "The Founding Fathers, for instance, are now referred to as the Framers in an apparent effort to make them sound less male-dominant. The word snowman, no more. Melt that image and replace it with snow person. The word jungle has been replaced with rainforest. The word devil has disappeared entirely, with no replacement." Take a trip to any college or university these days, private or public, and one will find political correctness run amok as courses in women's studies, African American studies, gay studies, and even the newest trend, whiteness studies, which unlike the others is no celebration of its subject, reflects the identity politics of our age. To suggest that teaching a Christian text is somehow unfair, biased, or a breach in the separation between church and state is to ignore the state-sponsored religion of political correctness that has dominated American public education for decades. Identity politics and multiculturalism has long been imposed on the minds of America's young, from the subtleties of grade school indoctrination to the fist-pumping radicalism of the modern campus, with taxpayers footing the bill. The textbooks available are produced by a small handful of publishers, and the content often reflects elitist preoccupation with PC politics above all else. Due to education and government standards, these publishers face zero scrutiny, or as Ravitch notes, quote, "The textbooks prepared for the schools are not sold in any open competitive marketplace. The American public has never been consulted about using their tax dollars to institute cultural revolution in the guise of education. If anything, states like South Carolina introducing Bible courses is quite democratic, as South Carolina is an overwhelmingly Christian state. Worrying that a Jewish, Muslim, or Buddhist South Carolinian might be offended by the mere mention of Moses or Methuselah during an elective course, while ignoring the philosophy of political correctness that plagues every aspect of today's required curriculum, is absurd. A faith without a church doesn't make it any less a faith. And besides, why erect a temple to the gods of political correctness when its high priests already have our public schools in which to spread their gospel? I'm the Southern Avenger, only on 1250 WTMA.